The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. And of course, the Big Issue team is here again, and it's another edition of the program. As usual, I'm your regular host. George Agba is my name. And of course, with me here in the studio, our in-house analyst. And of course, here we have Paul Agbo Augustine.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And Chibuzo Ukaibe.
Thank you very much.
Well, on the big issue, it has always been one issue of national interest to the other. If it is not security, it would be public affairs, or it would be hard issues that border on the polity. And for today, the big issue takes us again to the country's political landscape, where the PDP crisis seems to be festering with the national chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, going on the offensive. Well, the party in the main opposition party is festering by the day. And the party's national chairman, Dr. Iyorchia Ayu, has disdained fortune and seems prepared to confront his political foes head on. Ayu on Wednesday launched a verbal offensive on his opponents, saying the PDP governors, led by Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, who are seeking his resignation from office, were still children when he and other leaders formed the party. Ayu vowed not to resign, but serve out his 4-year tenure, adding that Atiku Abubakar's emergence as presidential candidate of the party does not affect his position as national chairman of the party. Other governors Ayu was actually referring to alongside Wike are Samuel Otom of Benue State, Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, and Okezi Ikpeazu of Abia State. But the Rivers State governor, however, fired back at the party yesterday, saying it won't get votes, that the PDP will not get votes from Rivers State without a clear reward. Wike supporters also criticized Ayu over his comment, telling him to respect the party's constitution on power rotation and stop being power drunk. Well, at the recent London meeting with PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, Wike was said to have insisted on Ayu's resignation from office and a commitment that Atiku will serve for only one term if he emerges president. Wike and his camp want a Southerner as the party's national chairman, since the party's presidential candidate is a Northerner. Well, most Nigerians and Chibuzo are of the view that the main opposition party is not prepared for this 2023 election, because going by the way it is tearing itself apart. Now, the national chairman, who all along had been playing along, playing cool, despite all the outbursts from Wike, has come out. And it seems to be doing what looks like the typical biblical analogy that says the kingdom of God suffered violence, and this time around, that violence will take it by force. And from his outburst, considering a man like Wike, who at the end of the day does not shy away from any kind of confrontation, it will go like that, on and on, despite the fact that the campaign for the 2023 election is just around the corner, this month, precisely. Don't you fear for the PDP?
Well, thank you very much. I think in the past, since May, after the primaries, we've been having one. It's become almost like one drama within the PDP, and this issue has dragged on for that long. I think virtually every Nigerian of political age or political awareness in recent months have become quite knowledgeable about the impact or the kind of drama that is playing out within the party. And of course, it sends a very big message about, like you did point out, how prepared the party is going into this election, which before now some pundits believed that it's PDPs for the taking, you know, because many had argued that, oh, against the backdrop of APC's performance in the three key areas that they campaigned on in 2015, economy, the fight against corruption, and security. It appears they have not only just underperformed, but they've done a terrible work at these three issues. Of course, all of the indices are there to justify that. The figures are there, inflation rates, unemployment rates, just name them. So the question is about whether PDP has the capacity now to get its act together going into this election. And from the way this current impasse is playing out, at least I've spoken to a couple of party members and even leaders, and as much as in the open they give you the impression that the party has the capacity to, mend its crisis, we've come this close in the past. Deep inside, when you really engage them, there's a level of trepidation because it has never been this or radical. The
Constantly
crisis has never been this, unstable in a long time. In other times, there used to be a stabilizing force, either the BOT, the governors forum. At critical times like this, there was always a rallying point. But it would seem as if even within these institutions, they still have not found themselves positioned. Become a case for. But again, one would have expected the party chairman, you know, to be much more circumspect in his expressions. Yes, of course, some of the things he has said are founded in the sense that if you look at what the constitution provides in the party, he has a 4-year tenure to do. It's a constitutional thing, you know. But if such a deal was made, and of course we've seen they've been playing back clips of what he said on a media, station. If he's actually said those things, and now they are calling out to him to act in that light, if he thinks it will be in the interest of the party, because the voices calling for that representation to be there seems to be broadening by the day. If that call is made and he thinks, as a father of the party, it is something he ought to do, there's nothing wrong in that. But it is not as if it should be pushed out in the way that becomes a humiliation. Because I think it now comes down to the ego question. So PDP is really in a very, very interesting place, and it will be quite interesting to see how, like I pointed out earlier, organs of this party, critical organs of the party that will ensure stability, handle this one?
Paul, honorably, I will want to say PDP is in a very, what I was expecting to hear next. Very hot soup. It's an interesting place. I don't know whether being in a hot soup is amounts to being an interesting place. But you see, for some Nigerians, what would have given Ayu such gumption, such confidence to speak back, fire for fire, at his political foes is that he seems to be enjoying the full support of the presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. It also means Atiku Chu is not yet ready for a resolution, because if he was, he would have actually called his own men. Don't forget that Ayu had been a long time political ally of the presidential candidate of the PDP. And of course, for him to have been exuding such confidence, firing back at his political opponent, Atiku must be behind it. And this, most Nigerians feel, it's a clear indication that even Atiku Chu is not ready. How does this happen? The party, as the 2023 elections inches closer by the day.
Judge, it's unfortunate that things have gone this bad in the main opposition party, PDP. And what I'm seeing playing out today is this. We have spoken to Wike, we have appealed to him, we tried to appease him. We've gone to London, we've sent emissaries to Port Harcourt, and he seems not to be turning a new leaf. And since he's not turning a new leaf, Wike is one man with one vote, and is one man with one vote. He does not control the people of Rivers directly. He won't be on each of the polling units in Rivers State on that election day. Yes, he has powerful utterances. His speeches can alter the game, can swing the game either way. But I think what the Atiku camp, for me, my understanding is that they concluded that, look, we are ready to take the risks. We have appeased him. Yes, he's not talking like a party man. He's the only one who talks without, let me use the word, without decorum. When if you're a party man, look at, play some of the tapes of Wike and look at his utterances. He has vowed that he will never leave the PDP. He will never betray the party. The party is above every individual, every member in that party. So the party is supposed to be supreme. There are certain things a governor of the status of UK should not be saying in public. Yes. And that is why people like Ayu, the national chairman, have decided that, look, they decided to throw caution to the wind. Anything that will happen, let it happen. Yes, there are powerful forces behind Ayu, and that is why the man has the temerity to speak the way he spoke yesterday. I think yesterday. That calling some of these governors as children when they started PDP. Apparently, he's looking at history, how the G34 also the origin of PDP. Actually, when they started, most of these gentlemen who are governors today, they were nowhere. They were just ordinary men on the street. So I will advise stakeholders now. The last hope of PDP ought to be the governors' forum, not even the BOT, because the governors have a lot of influence on the party. But the governors' forum seems to be divided. When we have certain people queuing behind Wike and moving around with him as if they are his aides. And Tambuwal, he is being seen today. Tambuwal, that is the chairman, PDP Governors Forum. Some people in the Wike camp will see him as an Atiku man. After all, he stepped down for Atiku. So how can he even mediate in this matter? They'll say he will take side. So that is a difficult situation in the PDP. But I think some people can still help to salvage the situation. People, some stakeholders who have not been talking all this while.
Well, thank you, Paul. I think at this point we'll just take a short break, hoping that our viewers will contribute constructively to the conversation on the big issue. And as we go on break, we expect that when we come back, the comments will be trickling in. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Concerning what you're discussing.
Okay.
The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We are still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast Studio. And of course, the big issue of the day is 2023 PDP crisis festers as Ayu goes on the offensive. Chibuzo Paul raised an issue, critical one for that matter, about the PDP Governors Forum. At least we all know that the Governors Forum is one powerful organ in the party, in the country. Whether it's a forum of governors, it's a forum of governors on the platform of party, or the Nigerian Governors Forum as a whole. We have always seen them come to play critical role whenever there is a kind of deadlock on issues of national importance. But the PDP, party, thank you very much. But now, PDP doesn't seem to be enjoying that particular stability from a very strong forum like the Governors Forum. And it appears its chairman and Sokoto State Governor, Aminu Tambuwa, would have gone to sleep. And perhaps his own reason might be that if he comes in now, they might accuse him of being partisan.
Yes.
Having stepped down for Atiku at the presidential primary. But at least there are other governors who are not hobnobbing with Wike. And of course, I see the governors with Wike are a microscopic view of the entire PDP governors. Why is it that they are not speaking on this matter? They are not coming together as a forum to address the issue.
I think you answered the question basically because of your asking.
The point I'm making is that if you look at the governors with Wike so far, they're like a handful. They are microscopic. But also Tom, Piazzo, and Seyima Kinde.
These are the vocal ones. These are the vocal ones. You can't be too sure because as it stands now, most of the governors have taken sides. Yes. There are some silent ones, I'm aware, that are just trying to not come to the fore at the moment. Of course, there are a few, I think about one or two, who have decided to sit on the fence at the moment and watch. But majority of them appears to have taken sides, and that is where the issue is. Because now, as it stands, they are also focused on how most of them will be leaving in 2000 and by the next election. They're also mindful about the impact of this on their own state elections, because the presidential election comes first. So these are the things that are on the table, that are before the minds of these governors. And it has shaped the way they are going about this whole thing. But it could be a plus too, because if they all recognize as a group that if you don't resolve this issue, it could affect on time. It could affect us even in our state, because the presidential election comes first. Imagine if this crisis festers and APC wins. Imagine the impact that will have, for their own election. Imagine if Obi wins. Imagine what that will have even for their own election. So the variables are, if this crisis continues, the variables for even these governors are much more uncertain in the negative for them. That is why it ought to have served as a positive, as a plus, that they meet and try to find a way of resolving this issue and put aside, these questions about, oh, you worked this way or you worked that way, and form some kind of elite consensus at that level to see how they come out of it. Even though they might be criticized for not working in the interest of the national. But this is politics. It's about give and take. And that is why I would have many would have expected that the national chairman, since he called these ones children, he shouldn't have really told them to their face in that sense that they are children, because we are playing with an ego issue. Now, it is not enough for you to say these people are not acting right, and then you come out openly as one who's supposed to be a father to chastise them the way you have done, particularly when you know that they also have some people beating some drum behind the scenes. Because today we saw Mr. Body George also echoing what these people are saying. Professor Jerry Ghana has also echoed this. The BOT chairman, funny enough, has also hinted at this seeming lopsidedness. Yes, at the seeming lopsidedness. Because now the issue has gone just beyond, and it's interesting, it has gone just beyond a weekend and this governor's call, particularly on the Ayu issue now, for him to step down. But they've been, how do I put it now? They've been able to coin a bigger question around geopolitics into their own agitation. That is why where it becomes a bit dicey. And now they're beginning to get sympathy. Now, what would they do? As long as these critical organs of the party are not, dropping certain interests to work in the collective, it might be very difficult. But again, the role of the presidential candidate is also very, very important. How he handles this matter will go a long way to reflect on whether or not he has the capacity
to lead the country. Well, thank you very much. Chibuzo, you just spoke about Ayu suggesting that he would have tread on the path of caution. But you should understand very well that the position Ayu found himself was a tight corner. Just like pushing somebody to the wall, he has nowhere to go, he turns around to fight back. And just like I said earlier, I think Ayu's mindset is that the kingdom of God suffered violence, and that violence,
which kingdom now?
taken it by force. Wike is not giving in. You talk about how you wouldn't have described them as children. Look at Wike. To show that the crisis is far from abating. Wike also alleged that the reason Ayu does not want to leave is because of the 15 billion naira in the party's coffers. Imagine what you will say to another woman.
You want to leave because
because of the money. Number one, you have called him a money monger. Yes, and that he's insatiable, and at the end of the day, he is positioning himself.
This is the implication of engaging somebody like this.
Yes,
at this level. You see, the
issue
is not about whether they're exchanging what.
It
is the message it sends to the larger polity. That is why at times when you know the person you are about to engage in, you just keep quiet.
But do you agree with Chibuzo that Ayu should have maintained that posture of an elder?
Yes, you should have maintained that posture.
And allow Wike to be hitting him the way he's even accusing him that
yes,
his longer throat.
Before this aspect of longer throat came up, it was when the child thing came up. That was the first time we are hearing the.
Wike responds to every word.
Exactly.
He responds to every word. I would have expected, as a national chairman, I would have expected Ayu to maintain that fatherly position. that fatherly posture. And not because when you know, by now you don't need a soothsayer to tell you who Uke is. Uke is ready to fight anybody, word to word. So in such thing, maintain some kind of decorum, some level of humility. If the man keeps on talking, one day he will ask himself, these people I'm talking to, they are not
saying
even,
anything.
they are not saying anything.
Why?
Why am I killing myself over this matter? So I expect some level of decorum because in the next 28 days or so, the party will face Nigerians to sell her manifesto, her candidates for, in the 2023 election. So you can't go into campaign with internal issues. You are washing your dirty linens in public. Imagine the issue of 15 billion naira in the. I know Wike 15 billion is nothing to him. He can splash 15 billion. No. So if people stop the party, what I expect them to do, talk to the man. If the man keep on talking, they don't respond. Leave him. It's his style. Because the French say style is the man. So leave him. If after talking, maybe somebody will just with all sense of humility, Your Excellency, these people we are talking about, they are not even talking again. Why don't we just stick to our prayers? That look, if they win this election, this is what we want. It has happened already. So he can't continue to rub the party's nose in the mud. Meanwhile, he wants a successor from his party in his state. What if PDP eventually wins the presidential election? What becomes of him? He should ask himself, will he feel comfortable? They say pictures don't lie. And recorded messages also don't lie.
Well, Paul, thank you very much. You see, most times when you see people who are ready to fire back at Wike, don't blame them. Wike, most Nigerians have described him in disdainful terms when it comes to his manner of speaking. Some have described him as a chatterbox.
Being considered
some say he's a negligible pocket radio that will utter anything that comes out of his mouth.
If you are ready to the presidential villa,
and his vituperations are very incisive. If Wike fires you here, you'll be fought. There's no way you want to sit back and look at him.
So nobody wants to pick you. Even elect you as president. But when you keep on talking like this,
let's look at this. I don't know how PDP looks at this type of balancing, because when you talk, Atiku is a northerner and he's a core northerner. Ayu is a middle belter. You might call him a northerner, but naturally, when you look at the geography of the country,
I do not see this Ayu's position as to be a big thing.
Because by the time PDP wins the presidential election, they might still give the Senate presidency to a southerner.
Even the SS,
the vice president is a southerner.
The vice president, there are a lot of positions that can still go to your side. And why are you just dragging Nigerians on this?
Well, Chibuzo, what Nigerians are even bothered about, especially members of the PDP, is that as the crisis in the party lingers, other parties like the APC, Labour Party, and NMPP will continue to make inroads into PDP's support base to weaken the party's capacity to square up in the 2023 election. What do you think about that?
Well, you won't fault those who have that fear, that concern, and it's pretty empirical. We saw there's been some analysis around this that PDP's base has been split along a couple of. I think it was the Jadino that made that analogy. There's the Peter B, the Kwaso camp, the Wike people now, and then the Atiku camp. And if you look at all these people, all came out of the PDP. All of these camps are just all PDP people, and then you have to deal with just the APC and Tinubu alone. Of course, if people are going to leave, so Shekara will come over. We are seeing the likes of Dogara and this other man also, romancing with the opposition.
Shoving their legs as if they will come.
So but again, it will seem as if as seemingly bad as APC has performed, as for people talking as opposition, they still have their block seeming much more compact in the build up to this election. Yes, they had their own squabbles, and perhaps they still have some squabbles to deal with the Amechis and Lawan and Co that didn't
Factor.
attend that meeting. If there's so much to read into that, but it will seem as if they still have, unlike the PDP, which has so unless they do something really quick, and try to ensure that they mend these things, it might not be very difficult for the PDP. However, this is where the concern for me really also is. In every political transaction, there's a measure of trust that exists, a pinch of trust, which is key, but not absolute trust, of course. A trust built on interest. But as it stands, the pressure for the PDP and the presidential candidate is to ensure that that measure of trust for every of these people kicking now is retained, such that they have nothing to fear when he becomes president. Because the way it's going now, if that measure of trust cannot be guaranteed, then everything, all of the reconciliation process
might just be an academic exercise.
Exactly.
Well, Paul, you just like what you just said. Do you see the NNPP and Labour Party as strong enough to have polarized and divided the PDP to an extent that it might not go to the 2023 poll as a very formidable entity?
Well, George, what I see of the NNPP and Labour Party is that they will just reduce what other the PDP and the APC. But they won't stop APC or PDP
from winning the election.
Well,
that is the much we can take for today's big issue. And of course, the crisis in PDP. And of course, the political landscape itself is actually bubbling. And of course, we're in the month of September, and very soon the campaigns will kick off. And we will be seeing more of political fireworks. And as the event unfolds, we will begin to know how it goes and how the 2023 elections would look like. Thank you for keeping tab with us. And of course, I thank our in-house analysts for addressing the big issue the way it should be addressed. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Do have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.